boy, here it comes, an innovative deep dive into the differences and similarities between two incredibly popular IPs. Bear with me, I promise this will get more interesting as we progress. I'm going to go through some rounds and then declare a winner for each round, ending in a final tally to declare the overall winner. Presentation, impact, community, controversies, narratives, monetization, and finally gameplay for the big old grand finale. But before we begin, a history lesson. So how did hero shooters find their footing, and what exactly defines a hero shooter? Now I know what you're thinking is probably TF2, and you would be half correct. Wikipedia defines hero shooters as a subgenre of shooter games which emphasize hero characters that have distinctive abilities and or weapons that are specific to them. They are multiplayer games that feature wildly different characters to fulfill niches that all come together to form a coherent team to complete objectives together. Hero shooters can be traced all the way back to early games, such as Battlefront with its class systems and ability to play popular characters from Star Wars that play differently from each other. Before hero shooters were called hero shooters, they were promoted as class shooters. Some games which you wouldn't necessarily call hero shooters at first can be defined as hero shooters, such as Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare, even Battlefield and Call of Duty Black Ops 3. It's just a crazy realization to have, if you ask me. The more modern understanding of a hero shooter is thanks to Overwatch skyrocketing the popularity of the subgenre to new heights, far surpassing anything TF2 could dream of. It made innovations and refined the groundwork that TF2 left behind and molded it into something more digestible. Heroes were split up into clearly defined roles, and to those of you who weren't around when Overwatch first launched, there were 4. Tank, support, attack, and defense. Compared to TF2, which had characters that could fit into these roles, but these roles were not defined like they were in Overwatch, where at launch it had triple the playable heroes. 21 to TF2's 9. Nowadays there's 3 main roles split into 10 sub-roles, which I'm not going to go into all of them, it's not important. Overwatch is genre defining, that much is just factual. You can't argue against it even if you hate the game, and God knows that game has had its rough patches. I've fallen out of love and back in love with Overwatch so many times at this point I consider it more of an X than my actual ex. Marvel Rivals had the stars align when it launched, and it quite literally breathed new life into not only hero shooters but also Marvel as a company. Overwatch was going through one of its many rough patches, and speaking from experience, I had just put Overwatch down for what I was hoping would be the final time, and I was struggling to find a multiplayer game to replace it, and then, with diamond hidden in the sand, Rivals got announced. I was skeptical, as most of us were, then I saw Magic in the trailer and I was all in. Magic is way less niche nowadays than she was when Marvel Rivals launched, but seeing her in the game was a sign to me that this is for every Marvel fan, not just fans of the MCU. I'm not going to give a Magic history lesson, but just know she shares a spot with Spider-Man as my favourite Marvel character, and she's held that spot for a few years, so you can understand how excited I was. Round 1. Presentation. This round is about the aesthetic and how the game itself looks. I'll give you guys a spoiler, Marvel Rivals is winning this one. The game is beautiful, the animated win-loss screens, the animated loading screens, the MVP animations, the skins, it's all fantastic. The comic book art style is gorgeous, and the lighting rigs they created for all the models to give them these hard light edges is astounding. The amount of colour in this game is crazy, and it makes Overwatch in comparison look bland. Which is a wild thing to say when Overwatch makes other games look bland. Marvel Rivals' presentation is just that good. On the screen right now whilst I'm yapping, you'll see a mix of MVPs and play of the game animations, and you can just look at the differences. The animation techniques Rivals displays, how much impact the drawn final frame hits you with, it's crazy. Overwatch doesn't look bad, but it can't hold a candle to this. Even the main menu screen is mogging Overwatch. This round goes to Marvel Rivals hands down. Round 2. Impact. This is all about the mark the game has made on the industry. Starting off with Overwatch, and I have talked about this a little bit already, but this game is the staple hero shooter. If you ask anyone about a hero shooter, this is the game they will think of first. It won Game of the Year in 2016, the impact this game has made is just undeniable. But that level of impact is not always a good thing. Overwatch didn't start the trend of predatory microtransactions, but the loot box system it popularized? That has caused some serious damage. This conversation will be delved into in a later round, but it is still relevant here. Overwatch is the modern foundation of hero shooters, and as such its influence is felt in everything that follows, even in Rivals. At the time of Marvel Rivals' release, hero shooters were rapidly losing popularity. Overwatch had stagnated, failed to deliver on promises they made, and the game was just sort of unfun. Rivals breathed new life into a dying genre that everyone was getting fatigued of. It even managed to revitalize interest in the MCU, and that's a mega franchise. You call this game anything less than impactful as a disservice, but at the end of the day, Rivals would not exist without Overwatch. So this round goes to Overwatch. Round 3, Community. This one goes without explanation. If you don't know, figure it out. Come on, man. I'm gonna be honest, both games share a community. You'll see Overwatch fans shout at Rivals fans about copying, you'll see Rivals fans shout at Overwatch about copying, and is there any merit to this? Yeah. Both of these games have blatantly copied from each other. It doesn't matter who did it first, you're all being babies about it. Saying a hero shooter copied abilities is like saying Call of Duty copied reloading from Battlefield. It is a moot point, as healing projectiles came with your hero shooter. Just like how pronouns came with your being alive. You can't not have them. But there is more to a community than trying to wage war with another. I have noticed a big difference in how the Rivals team interacts with their community compared to Blizzard. A big issue people had with Blizzard was their lack of communication. They never told us anything, and it almost seemed like Blizzard was embarrassed to be working on Overwatch. However, I would argue that Rivals is telling us too much. Every season they release a roadmap of what we can expect throughout the season, which is cool, but it also has the downside of nothing surprising us. We just got Black Cat and White Fox officially announced, and a day later we could piece together that we're probably getting Cyclops and Devil Dinosaur next season, of which we have seen through gallery cards shown in early gameplay previews. At the time of me writing this script, White Fox isn't out yet. The season hasn't begun, and we already know every single surprise we are going to get. I will admit, I haven't been in the Overwatch community since I quit the game right when Malga was set to release, and I only came back because of the new set of promises they made that I am sure they will also break. But, like I said, they're my ex. I do not remember the Overwatch community being as tightly knit as the Rivals community has been. Every day when I was in the Overwatch community I would log on to Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, you name it, and see a brand new argument about how Mercy doesn't get enough skins. Rivals, I log on and I see everyone in agreement that Sue is getting way too many skins. Overwatch has this divide between its players that I don't see closing anytime soon, whereas with Rivals it does feel like we're all on the same rapidly sinking boat trying to hold it all together. I think another thing to showcase this is our cult leaders, Guang and Jeff Kaplan. I'm not talking about Aaron Keller because he has not hit the same status of being memed as Jeff Kaplan and Guang Squared have. The last time it truly felt like the Overwatch community was an actual community was when we all sat around and watched Jeff Kaplan do nothing in front of a fireplace for an hour. Overwatch is sorely missing that connection point with its community that Rivals currently has. So round 3 goes to Marvel Rivals. Or it would have if some support players didn't just throw this away. Season 7 has just launched, and with the introduction of triple bans, some players are banning the 3 main support picks, Invis, Luna and Cloak and Dagger. Of which, support players are now complaining, again, about how they can't play anyone else and that the 3 bans are unfair. Someone even tried organising another, yes another, support strike using AI generated slop in one of the corniest posts I have ever seen. I kid you not, I spent about an hour just laughing at them. Round 3 goes to Overwatch. Round 4, Controversies. Which game has screwed the pooch harder across their history? We're going to get serious for a moment here and address the elephant in the room. I will not be talking about the sexual harassment lawsuit that happened at Blizzard in this video. That is a subject for a far more mature video, and I refuse to make those atrocities into a competition between video games. So this round will be about controversies that are not tied to things that affect very real people in very real ways, including any layoffs. This is exclusively stuff that is harmless, such as bad balance decisions, favoritism of characters, and devs straight up lying about things. So we're going to kick off with the biggest one, Overwatch 2. There have been heaps upon heaps of discussion with Overwatch 2, leaving Overwatch 1 behind to rot in a stale and very boring meta, to then just under-deliver on what was promised, and then eventually scrapping the one thing that would have actually made it a sequel. I'm not going to keep beating a dead horse, but man if that horse doesn't deserve to keep being beat. Overwatch also has the mess that is Sombra, and now the mess that is Jetpack Cat. We already got an improper balance of skin spreads with a large majority going to Mercy and Kiriko, whilst characters like Baptiste and Ramatra get left behind. Ram only got his dance emote about a month ago. And yes, Overwatch has been out for 9 more years than Rivals, so there is an inherent advantage to them in this round. They've had way less time to mess up, but they still have, and if they keep this rate up, they're not going to get to the 10 years that Overwatch has. In the 1 year that Marvel Rivals has existed, they are already experiencing some of the issues that Overwatch has. a disproportionate amount of DPS in comparison to the other roles. If you compare the amount of DPS to the amount of the other roles combined, they still have more characters. I can excuse Overwatch's imbalance of these roles to a certain extent because they launched with what was initially an even spread, but when they combined the defense and attack roles into just one, that is where the imbalance started. However, Rivals launched with that imbalance. Rivals is also already getting the same issue with skins that Overwatch has. Invisible Woman, Psylocke, Luna Snow, Venom and Jeff have biblical levels of greed, and that's not including the past merchants like Thor and Loki. Rivals takes its sweet time nerfing problematic characters. Gambit has been way too good since his release in Season 5, and the devs are scared to nerf a character too heavily in case they become useless. Which, sure, I can understand that. When a character is bad, less people play them, so less people will buy their skins. But Gambit is not getting another skin for another 2 seasons now, and, in my opinion, if a character has been on top of the food chain for a couple of seasons, they can be at the bottom for a while so other characters can have their time to shine. Despite Rivals having disproportionate growing pains, Blizzard's mess that was Overwatch 2 is far too big of a sin to ignore, so they take this round, and winning this round is bad, so Rivals is getting the point. Round 5. Narrative. Which game has better storytelling and character writing? Overwatch started off strong with the release of a series of very high quality animated shorts, but those slowed down over time until they eventually just stopped. And after a few years, we're only now starting to get some again, but they don't match the ones that came before. The game had a very strong narrative foundation to build up from. Every new character would belong to a faction and their introduction would push the story forward, but it never actually would. This is the biggest potential man of a story I have ever seen. You would only get world building, which is good, but you cannot make a story out of exclusively world building. Spent years constructing this amazing sandbox to play with and then just didn't. It's only now that we are actually getting the ball rolling on telling a story, and may I remind you, this game is turning 10 years old. In the time this game has been out, I have started high school and I am now in university. I have seen family members be born and start school in the time this game has taken to get started on telling a story. Rivals, on the other hand, have hit the ground running. Yes, they have an advantage with being set in the Marvel multiverse and has the sandbox already created for them to play in, but you've had a vampire takeover of New York, we've had to fight against the god of nothing itself in space, we've had Ultron attempt to take over of Krakoa and Morocco, we have an incoming incursion of Dolores Gertz in this current season are to be believed, which for those not in the know is literally 2 different universes colliding. This stuff is insane and has all happened and is happening at the same time as Overwatch has just kicked off the core conflict between its 2 largest factions. People used to beg Blizzard for an animated show or movie set in the universe of Overwatch, but I've personally seen that desire fizzle out the longer Blizzard just sat on their goldmine. The character comparison is where it gets less one-sided, and turns into more of a back and forth. Keeping in mind Rivals' inherent advantage, I think Overwatch has better character writing. A few exceptions obviously, such as Kiriko, who in-game is nothing like she is in an animated short, and the newcomer Mitsuki, who is just sort of kind of annoying. But overall, the characters in Overwatch are likeable and they've served their purpose in the story well. Rivals has a ton of characters from the Marvel comics to pick from, and that comes with its own advantages and disadvantages. They have an easier job conceptualizing a character, but they also have preset expectations for them. And we're going to look at Magic in particular for this, because whilst the Magic in Rivals is okay, they missed the mark on her personality. Yes, this Magic is sadder and angrier than the one in the comics due to her losing her friends in the New Mutants, so her being more closed off than she usually is makes sense. We have, unfortunately, lost the parts of her personality that make her stand out in comparison to other loner characters. Magic and Daredevil are very similar in this game, largely because Magic has lost a lot of her attitude. In the comics, Magic fills the same role in the X-Men that Wolverine filled in the 80s and the 90s. Overwatch doesn't suffer from these issues due to all the characters being created specifically for the game rather than adapted. Picking a winner for this round could honestly go either way, but I think Rivals takes the edge. With the few misses they have, they nail other characters, and the story being told is actually, well, being told. Round 6. Monetization. Which game steals from you the least? We're gonna kick things off with loot boxes. Oh, how I despise you back in the day, and oh, how do I love you today. Overwatch undeniably helped standardize the current monetization trends that plague the industry to this day. It's not on the same level of infamy as the Horse Armor DLC in Oblivion, however, but the only monetization that matters is the here and now, as that is what will be affecting us today. Loot boxes are now free and tied to in-game challenges or Twitch drops. The main way Overwatch steals your money now is through battle passes and skins, all of which are bought with currency that you have to buy. Yes, there are some skins that you can get for free, but those are basic recolors and old skins from Overwatch 1. And to be frank, both of these games overcharge you for skins, but Overwatch is especially mean. Whilst the prices for skins are about the same if you buy them with exclusively premium currency, Rivals doesn't require exclusively premium currency. They offer a decent amount of the free currency that you can use to either get new skins for free or discounted. Overwatch does not do this. The only thing in Rivals that you cannot buy with free currencies are any battle passes or mini passes. On top of this, Overwatch has mythic skins, both for guns and characters, and the prices of these are just absurd. You will use the base amount required to buy the skins without any of the extra customization options that you have to pay even more for. You will require 50 prism shards to buy a mythic skin, which will cost you around $40 American dollars or £34. Yes, you can get prism shards in the battle pass, not that many though, especially in comparison to how many skins are out there, but even having an option to buy them for that much is a cardinal sin. Any non-existent edge Overwatch had over Rivals when it comes to monetization has been wiped off the face of the earth, and this round goes to Rivals easily. Final round. Gameplay. Both games share core gameplay mechanics. You have your tanks, your DPS, and your supports. You have objective-based gameplay and ultimate abilities and counter-swapping. But where the two games really differ is in the details. Not long after Rivals launch, Overwatch added a perk system, they added Stadium, they refined the hero ban system Rivals added, and they made a better one. Even with these new changes Blizzard added to Overwatch, there are still some things they can't directly compete with because they're so ingrained into the core mechanics of Rivals, and that is destructible terrain and hero team-up abilities. Things such as Doctor Strange's portal are not only unique, but also technological advancements. Seriously, getting a functioning portal that you can not only walk through, but also see and shoot through, work in a game as busy as a hero shooter is crazy. It's truly impressive stuff. Rivals is faster, with emphasis on spectacle and fulfilling the fantasy of playing your favourite character. It is chaotic, but is that a good thing? Overwatch is paced, it balances fights to be more structured, every ability usage matters, unlike in Rivals where you are tracking a select few. Rivals struggles with its neutral game, where ultimates aren't available. And with ultimates online, in what feels like basically every fight, it turns the game into a sensory nightmare. Trying to communicate with your teammates and focus on what is actually going on when Gambit is never folding every single fight is really difficult. And they have recently added a patch, which does help the neutral game by reducing ult charge by around 20%, and honestly, in the bit that I've played so far, it is really helping. I feel old saying this, but remember when Overwatch first came out and people were joking about how it would kill your grandma because of how much stuff was going on screen? Yeah, Rivals gameplay makes Overwatch look like a chill walk on the beach. Overwatch is much more concise and meaningful in its gameplay. Characters are simpler and it works better. Both games have a similar character count now, Rivals caught up rapidly, and I feel pretty confident in saying Overwatch is more future-proof than Rivals. Let's compare two characters that exist to serve similar functions in their games, Hela and Ashe. Both characters are poke characters. Both have insanely high primary fire damage, but Hela has something Ashe doesn't. She has mobility, a stun, and a way to gain overshield. Ashe only has mobility that is nowhere near as good as Hela, and knockback in place of a stun. But her mobility and knockback are the same ability. And the crazy part? Ashe is still way too good for the game she is in. The trend I've noticed with the Rivals balance team, they love to give a character an answer for everything when they just shouldn't have an answer to everything. It's okay to have an all-rounder character, but when you have a character who excels in something, they shouldn't be a jack of all trades too. Almost every poke character in Rivals has both mobility and a stun. Black Widow is one of, if not the worst character in the game, but even then she has both of these. Both games suffer from something I affectionately dub poke slop. It's just dominant over any other strategy. Dive should be the counter to poke. The idea behind their role is to hit the enemy hard and fast with limited survivability. But when all it takes to shut them down is for the poke character to press one of their many get out of jail free cards, it creates something unbalanced. There's this Pokemon X type triangle that's been floating around for a while now, where poke beats brawl, brawl beats dive, and dive beats poke. It's a good thing to keep in mind when creating a character, and it doesn't have to be that way for every character. Not every dive should be playable into every poke, but it should be the counter for a lot of them. In the dev vision for Season 7, the lead director for balancing had this to say about Poke and his role in the game.
They are required to check flyers and preemptively soften up divers. This strategy elevates the constant threat faced by the backline, helping to maintain a smoother overall pace of confrontation.
Now, I'm not a game designer, that isn't my wheelhouse, but if the job is to soften up the diver, then why do they have a quicker time to kill than most divers? That's not softening up, that's fully countering. So essentially what that means is that there is next to nothing to keep Poke in check, because Poke apparently needs to keep its counter in check. That is what characters like Mr. Fantastic exist for. That character is what should soften up a dive, not characters like Hela and Phoenix. That is not their job. Their job is to deliver consistent, high damage, but also be vulnerable themselves. It should be risky to play a Poke character the same way it's risky to play a dive character. Poke characters should never feel comfortable when they take off angles and go on flanks. It should be a risky play that you coordinate with your team and is rewarded massively if you can pull off. Not something they can just do whenever they feel like it. Poke characters, despite still being the strongest archetype in Overwatch, have weaknesses. They have consistent counterplay. They're much weaker in the close ranges than the ones in Rivals. They have the limited mobility and survivability that Poke characters in Rivals should have. Rivals also has a massive power creep problem, something Overwatch doesn't struggle with nearly as much. Rivals has existed for 1 year and is already facing problems with the new characters just being upgrades of already existing characters. Elsa Bloodstone is Psylocke, but just better, and this is a direct consequence of not wanting to give your characters weaknesses, and giving every character an answer for everything. You strip them of their individuality. It becomes less about what a character can provide, and more about which character provides it best. Overwatch is much more clean. Each character can serve their own purpose without stepping on the shoes of other characters. In terms of raw gameplay, Overwatch takes this final round. It's undeniably more polished. With a score of 4-3, Marvel Rivals is the winner. Even though Overwatch is the objectively more well-made game, its lacking power in the other rounds just was not enough to give it the edge. This controversy is lack of a narrative, dated graphics and art style, and overly predatory monetization weigh what would otherwise be a really good game down. Both games have a ton of potential, and it would be really fun to see in about a year's time where each of them are. I see very bright futures ahead for these games, and you know, it might be fun to come back and check on this in about a year's time and see how they hold up in a rematch.